Hello friends and welcome back to my shop. In this week we're going to do some CNC milling of the new style pocket clips, which are coming out perfect. I'm super happy with them. The first thing I had to do though was get my lathe cleaned up and put a little upgrades, modifications I wanted on it. With this machine, especially doing a lot more work in stainless and titanium, I'm using more abrasives during the final finishing steps. And abrasives you always want to keep away from precision surfaces. So normally I would cover the bed with cloths or shop towels or whatnot while using the abrasives and then take the towels off, but it's getting tedious and it's getting annoying, so I figured a more permanent solution is in order. On my mill a few months ago now, I put leather way covers on it for basically the same reason, just to keep the hot chips from getting on any of the precision surfaces or getting on the ball screws. And it's worked out so amazingly well that I'm going to do the same on the lathe here. I don't even have to worry about cleaning it essentially anymore. I check on it every few weeks to make sure there's no chips on the precision surfaces, and everything is happy. So that's what I'm going to do here. It's going to save me time down the road for the hour or two investment up front here to get everything nice and clean. This is also a fairly inexpensive machine, so having damage to the bedways or the carriage isn't really a deal breaker. I mean, the bed itself is like $200 to buy. I think the carriage is like $100. So you'll see me later on. I use some Scotch-Brite right on the bed, which is something I wouldn't do on a very expensive machine. But on this, I'll take chances. I've done this in the past as well, and it doesn't seem to affect tolerance at all. I mean, that's fine Scotch-Brite on a hardened surface. I think most of it is what I'm pulling off is just the aluminum transfer from the carriage. But yeah, I know some people will be cringing about that step. The one super important thing when doing that or using any abrasive on something like that is to you'll see me cover it in oil quite a bit and then wipe it back down, and the oil just helps to grab the grit, and then I'll use a clean cloth to pull that grit off. And I'll do that multiple times because if you don't do that, you end up essentially making lapping compound. You can see on the little mag stand in the back there how the oil kind of got dirty and grimy. And that's just grit in oil. And if you were to put the carriage back on and run it back and forth, it's just gonna eat away at the surfaces over time. So not something you particularly want. The 5C headstock is built like a tank. The dust seals on it are great. I don't even worry about it. I mean, I still treat it nice. I try not to blow a bunch of compressed air at it, but I'm very happy with it. It's stout. It feels like the day I bought it. It's way overbuilt for this machine, and I'm very happy with it. Here you can see the little leather way covers I made. I wanted to have way covers that would cover the entire bed, but there's just so little room under that headstock that I had to go with the smallest I could. Quite honestly, 95% of the work I do with this machine, the carriage is only moving 2 to 3 inches away from the face of the 5C collet there. So that's how big of a leather cover I made for it. If I ran into issues, I could always make a bigger one, but honestly, for all my production work, I don't see that being a single issue. Also going to be a wonderful upgrade to never have to worry about covering up those precision surfaces anymore. Everything will just be nice and happy. Here I'm putting my little half nut, split nut, whatever you want to call it, contraption back on, and then a plate on top, and that'll just help hold the way cover. I also put another way cover you'll see shortly here on the cross slide and kind of worked it in a shingle fashion, overlapping. That way when I do use compressed air to blow off my work or whatnot, that compressed air is never going to be able to make its way into any of the dovetails. Compressed air has a tendency to force chips into places it shouldn't, as well as blowing them away, but it also blows them into places you don't want. So by going with kind of a shingled approach, you make it very difficult for the chips to get in there. Once again, just making my life simple, but not having to do a bunch of cleaning down the road. So I hope. I mean, the mill has been my test bed, and that's working wonderful, so. I also took this time to cut a couple grooves into my tool post there. You can see there's a vertical and a horizontal one. And that'll just let me align my tools, especially with it being CNC now. I can use tool offsets, so I can basically touch off the tool once, and then it's fairly repeatable. It's not a perfect solution, but I made those slots the exact same size as the little adjustment screws. I'll probably actually end up milling the ends of the adjustment screws so they fit there perfectly, and that should get me pretty close. Maybe not perfect, but close. Last step was to put a little lithium grease on the screws, and we're good to go again. Here's some clips of the first CNC runs of fully milling the bolt slots in the pen. Normally this procedure, when I did it manually, accounted for actually a decent amount of the machining, just because getting all the alignments and angles and everything set up manually is a little tedious. With CNC, it's ridiculous. It's like a 45-second procedure. It's raising up a burr there, and mill's a little dull, and my cooling isn't really adequate. It turns out air blast worked pretty much the best. I mean, flood coolant would be the best, but my mill isn't set up for flood coolant. And of course, on camera, that burr looks way, way worse than it is. It was like tinfoil thin. I could rub it away with my thumb. And when these parts go through tumbling, that's a non-issue, but I might end up actually taking a ball mill in the future and breaking that edge. Basically putting a chamfer on it. My chamfer mill is a little bit too big to fit into some of those tight radiuses. But my tolerances are dead on, so I'm happy with that. Stainless is fun to work with. I like titanium way better. Stainless is gummy and kind of annoying. Titanium actually machines really, really well. Just removing one of the soft jaws. I have to use soft jaws with my 4th axis fixture because I designed it to work with my soft jaws. And in this case, I had a little chunk of titanium I wanted to use for these pocket clips just to get rid of it. And just it works better with hard jaws, so I put a hard jaw back into it, aligned it with the moving jaw, and off to the races. Just a quick roughing pass, and then later we'll come through with a 1/16 ball to put a nice texture on the inside of the clip. Full depth of cut roughing. Titanium likes a nice heavy chip because well, you want to get rid of the heat in the chip, so I take about as aggressive as a cut as I can with this little mill without going too crazy with my deflection. I could probably hit it a little heavier, but this is dependable and I can kind of walk away from it. Air blast seems to work nice. I'm happy with it. Final profile of the tolerance and the inside surface. This was one of my first runs actually. It was doing an avoid of a drill hole that's going to come from the other side, so you can see it gets kind of weird code there. I changed that just so it would be nice and uniform. But yeah, surface finish off this is incredible. I'm actually very impressed for a hobby grade mill. I'm getting some really, really nice surfaces. And that, once again, brings us to the end of this week. I had hoped to have the pens in this video, but the next process I'm doing is the finishing process. There's some tumbling and there's some chemical processes that I haven't done before. And it's not something I want to rush. There's a decent amount of work in those pens right now, and yes, they are pre-production units. They're basically just to nail down all my processes. But I'm also going to be carrying them around, and they're kind of like my business card, my showpiece, so I want them to look good. So those should be definitely visible next week. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll probably see the process or more pictures sooner. Not that you have to. Free country. Do what you like. There'll also be a forum going out next week just to kind of get a feel for who wants pens or the sizing they're interested in or the color options, the finishing options. There'll be pictures in that as well. If you follow me on any source, YouTube, my website, Instagram, stalk me outside my window, whatever you do, you should be able to see this forum. I'll make sure it's visible to everybody. My website, email sign up is probably going to be the first one because that's the easiest way that people kind of interact with me. And yeah, that's all we got for this week. To my Canadian fellow friends, happy Thanksgiving. To my American friends, happy Thanksgiving in a while. And otherwise than that, stay safe, guys, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.